Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Monica. I am a tarot reader and astrologer based in the Whitsundays in Queensland, Australia, and today I'm looking at my top 15 tarot deck recommendations for tarot readers. So before I get into this, I just want to say that these 15 decks are chosen from the perspective of someone who has around 18 years of experience reading tarot for others, and that very much, I guess, informs the decks that I've chosen today. So part of reading for others means that the decks that I use as a tarot reader are actually quite different to the decks that I use in my personal practice. Sometimes I will pick up some of these 15 decks I have here. Yes, they're great decks. But there are many other decks that are excellent for a personal practice, for, say, self-development, for asking questions that are more aligned with spiritual development and things like that. And while I appreciate those decks enormously, and they have their own value, as a reader, those are not the decks that I reach for. They do not work, at least for me, as a tarot reader who needs to be ready to answer a whole spectrum of questions that range from, and these are actual questions that I've been asked, I kid you not, will my plane crash? This is someone who's going on an overseas trip. Will I have a son? Because I have 3 daughters and I want to have a son. Someone who needs to get a message from their departed, deceased mother. And then you have your standard questions around love, relationships, business, vocation, money, financial difficulties. Those are kind of like the bread and butter. But by no means the only questions that I've been asked, and I've been asked some it's quite a wide range. So with that being said, my decks need to be what I like to call pragmatic and practical. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, as in, I'm not aiming to take away from the spiritual component of a tarot deck. But spirituality, of course, is infused in all of life, including those sort of questions that are day-to-day questions. So I wanted to say that up front because that absolutely informs these 15 decks. Now, the second thing I need to mention is that I am a reader who reads with decks that are based on the Waite Smith system. I do not read with Thoth decks for the public, for the main reason being that I have not been able to have the same relationship with the Thoth deck as I have with the Waite Smith deck. Nowhere near, not even close. And I have honestly tried. I've started doing a deep diving with Thoth, and I'm still on that path because it comes and goes. I admit, I think the artwork is stunning in the Thoth. I think it's got so much substance and depth. I don't deny its value and its power at all. It just comes down to my relationship with the deck as a tarot reader. And I should also say that as a tarot reader, I do divination. I don't have an issue with doing divinatory readings at all. I, in fact, have done a video. I might link that in the description box below if I remember. I did a video, I think it was titled something like, "Is divination a dirty word?" Because I do those types of readings. But they are very nuanced and they require some careful discussion with the client. But that's not the point of this video. I also don't read with the Marseille because while it is calling me, I'm just not brave enough to go down that road yet. I know it will happen at some stage. I know Marseille is amazing, it's beautiful. I like that kind of geometric patterns in the pips. I absolutely adore it, but anyhow. So there will be no Thoth and there will be no Marseille type decks here, okay? I just wanted to say that out loud first. So, a cup of tea first. And let's get started. So, of course, my first deck goes without saying. This is my first tarot deck, which I picked up on a whim that started this whole journey for me. And it is the Waite Smith. This is the Universal Waite Smith, illustrated by, who was it? Hansen Roberts, I believe. My apologies if I don't get that correct. So, I mean, what can I say about the Waite Smith? It is such an iconic deck. And you know, the thing about it is that after all these years, when I have a client that comes to see me and I cannot pick a deck, I cannot find the energy, you know, like sometimes the deck kind of, this energy really kind of calls out. I can't describe it in words because obviously the decks don't talk, but they kind of do in an energetic way. So when I look through my collection of 150 plus decks and I really can't get a deck for a client, I reach for this deck. I reach for the Waite Smith, and without fail, it delivers. It absolutely never fails me, never. It's an incredible deck, and I've had to sit and think about why is this deck just so incredible. And I don't think it's just because it was, you know, one of the very first decks that were published. It's more than that. In other words, it's not just here because it's been around for a long time. It's much more than that. And I think if I had to name it or put a name on it, it would be because the illustrations are so relatable and easy for an average person who doesn't know anything about the tarot to find meaning in or to relate to somehow. Even though these were drawn like, you know, this was published in 1901? A long time ago. I mean, I can relate to that. I've been there. Right? And it's the same for all of these cards. So I think that's, well, at least that's part of the reason, you know, in my opinion. So this is the first deck. I always recommend it as a beginner's tarot deck. When I read, like if I have workshops or when I teach tarot, which I don't do that often, but always, this is the deck that we work with. No exception. I don't care if a person doesn't like it. Tough luck. Once we're done with the foundation, people can go and choose from the thousands of decks out there, art that, you know, relates to them a bit more. But this is an incredible deck is all I can say about it. Next up, these are in no particular order other than the first deck, which I wanted to start with the Waite Smith. So next up, let's have a look. I've got here a deck I bought secondhand. I think it was around $20. It is a mass market deck. This is the Robin Wood. I don't even have a proper bag for it. I'm really sorry. I've been meaning to get a proper bag for ages. So yes, most of these decks are mass market. You can still get them at reasonable prices. In fact, all except for like I think two, no, maybe three are mass market decks. So Robin Wood, again, this deck is excellent reading deck. It reads really, really well for all types of questions. It's easy to relate to. The images are clear. It's got that illustration type image, like in terms of drawing. And I'm a fan of that. I'm very, very fond of that. Almost like, you know, if this was a kid's picture book, these are the kind of illustrations you might find in it. Except for maybe the devil card and the death card. But you know what I mean. So I like this deck because I almost like it because it's simple, without trying to be, you know, insulting to the deck. It's just, and that makes it for an excellent reading deck. Okay, so very similar to the Waite Smith. So it just has a bit of a different energy in terms of the colors used, and the people, you know, are a bit different. And some of the illustrations, of course, are different, but essentially the meanings are the same. So that makes it for a fantastic reading deck. And again, this is mass market. You can find it easily. It shouldn't be too expensive. As I said, I think I paid something like $20 for the second hand, maybe even less. I can't remember. It was a few years back. Another deck that, let's grab this one out here, is truly brilliant as a reading deck is the Llewellyn. So the Llewellyn deck, it stays true to the Waite Smith, but it's got beautiful, beautiful colorings, and it's got a sort of fantasy, romantic vibe to it. If you like that, which I do, I'm a big fan of, you know, fantasy, not necessarily fantasy, but sort of old histories and legends, and this is based on the Celtic legends. Very, very delicately drawn, very, very beautiful. It's got nice detail without being too cluttered or too difficult to read. So even though the majors have got their own names based on Celtic mythology, we're talking about things like the Arthurian tales and things like that. You don't need to know that to read with this deck, but it does have an excellent book that you can refer to if needed. So as you can see, this is the Five of Cups here. Very similar to, again, the RWS deck, but I just find that the drawings are much softer, and the colors in this deck are just excellently done. So a lot of the times you'll have really strong yellows or blues, and sometimes I've had readings with this deck where the color dominance of one particular color really was relevant to the reading. So, you know, you might have lots of blue-gray, kind of more monotone, more serious colors in the spread, but then the advice card was a really bright yellow, which kind of energized the querent, gave them really, really positive, vibrant energy as a guidance for them, even though they were surrounded by other cards that were more low energy, like you know, lots of grays and things like that. So I really value this deck for that. So this is the Llewellyn deck. I think it's pretty well known in the tarot world. And now I've got the first edition, and actually I think this year Llewellyn is coming out with a new edition of this, and I'll be really, really keen to have it, to get a copy of that and actually compare them. I'm very keen on seeing how the card stock is and things like that. So the bottom line, it's mass market and easily available. Now, this, I believe, has also now been a mass market deck. This is the Anna K. I've got here one of the very early indie editions, but this has now, I'm fairly certain that it's become it's got a mass market release for it. So, what can I say about this? It's a great reading deck. Again, similar to the Llewellyn, it's got very strong color choices in the cards. So you see here this really beautiful yellow, very golden colors. And even in the Judgment card, like, it really emphasizes the idea of like coming out into the light and stepping forth into your own power, which are key themes with Judgment. So again, in a reading, I pay attention to color distribution. I know not all readers do that, but I certainly do. It doesn't always mean that's relevant, but sometimes it absolutely is. So this deck is brilliant because of that. It's, again, day-to-day life scenes that are beautifully illustrated by the artist and that are easily interpreted. by me and also the clients. You know, sometimes I let clients have a look at a card, and we have a chat about the person in the card and what they're doing. It's a really great way to get a Aquarian to come to a conclusion about the guidance that they need to follow. So I love that 10 of Swords, the person's walked. They've said, stuff this. They got up and walked off. Absolutely beautiful. So that's the Anna K, which I very much value as a reading deck. It's just a matter of personal preference, but this one comes out now and then, and it's just got really nice energy to it to read with. All right, now for something a bit more modern. Let's do a couple of modern decks. So first up is the Vanessa Tarot in a tin, published by US Games. This is Linear Narcisso's deck, and he's got a few decks out there, but I still think that this is one of the best that he has created. So I've had this deck, gosh, for so long. Worked with it lots. And it's just fun. It's a fun deck. It's modern. Most of the protagonists in the cards, in fact, I think all of them except for one are women. It's a very small deck, as you can see. And I love these characters. They're just so sassy. So much sass in some of these. And it's very youthful. It's a youthful deck. Right, this is a deck, it's great to read with for younger people, for, yeah, you know, late teens, early 20s, mid-20s, late 20s. I think a lot of the scenes are just really fresh and vibrant and fun and quirky, and they're just there enjoying life. You know, they love shopping. Mixing cocktails. I love that temperance. This temperance card is just brilliant, you know, mixing the cocktails at the bar. So yeah, this is a lovely little deck, and now and then I bust it out, and I'm always surprised by just how great of reading it does. Again, because the images are relatable and they're interpretable, if that's a word. Okay, another modern deck that came out a few years back, and it's become a favorite of many people. Now this is indie. You can, I believe, only get this from the artist. Is the Cosmic Cycles Tarot from Miriam E.G. She's created quite a few versions of this over the years. I believe I have, I don't know if it's the second one, not sure. But very, very modern. Artwork is fantastic. She's an illustrator. This is not AI. This is someone's actual own illustrations. And yeah, very modern in terms of the images depicted and the people and the characters and what they're doing. So just sometimes this deck really jumps out for a reading. And when it does that, the readings are really, really beautiful and very supportive, I find. People, again, you know, shopping, sitting by a fountain, modern life. These are people in, let me look at temperance, yoga pose in a class perhaps, or maybe in an apartment. So occasionally we'll have scenes from nature. It's like someone going out into nature, but most of the cards are people doing stuff that you and I could do or would do at some point in our lives. I'm not sure about traveling with a flower pot, but this is the Fool. I love this little warning sign here about, you know, being careful. It's great. Yeah, the chef in the kitchen. I mean, I don't know. There's something absolutely just gorgeous about these cards, and I'm in love with this deck. Now and then, this comes out from my own personal readings as well, but I find that it's best used with client work. I don't know why that is, but here we go. Some decks, you just get that. So after the Waite Smith, the next one that I consider a total classic, as most of you would recognize by the backs, is the Morgan Greer. I actually really love this deck. I think this is like a true reader's deck. I've more than once gone and seen a reader, because sometimes tarot readers need their own tarot readers. And I've had this deck. I've had that reader use this deck, and it was great for me because, I didn't let on that I was a tarot reader. So straight away, as the reading, as the cards were turned over, I knew what the message was. But it's always great to get another perspective from a seasoned reader, and to see this deck being used. And the deck that this person had, the cards were not these gloss type cards. They were like an old version with a very, very matte cardstock. And they were just about falling apart. And I just love that, like a really well-worn deck. So all that you sort of think, geez, any day now, one of these cards is gonna get ripped in half or something. But anyhow, Morgan Greer, a total classic. Love these images. Love all the mustachioed man. I've got a soft spot for the 70s, the 60s and the 70s, and so this deck is very, very close to my heart because of that. And I think the characters are very, they do say quite a bit in the cards. I like the up close kind of nature of some of these cards, like they're not too far away in the scene. I think that's really important when reading for someone. But overall, I think the artwork just really speaks to me. So the Morgan Greer is a classic, and now and then I can't help but, turn to it for my own clients. Talking about classics and talking about matte cardstock or not glossy cardstock, I had to purchase this specifically because of its cardstock. This is the Aquarian Tarot, and I was going to say that there's different versions of this deck. In fact, the earliest versions, as I understand it, have a gloss cardstock. And so when looking for the Aquarian Tarot for me to use, I had to do some research. Somebody actually recommended a video on this channel. I can't remember who it was, but thank you so much, because I went and I followed it, and I discovered that this version, I think, was published in the 90s. It's tricky because they all will say, copyright 1970, and so you will have people online selling this claiming it's a 1970 deck when in fact it isn't. And I purchased this, I believe, once again, it might be mid to late 80s or it might be early 90s. I can't remember already, I've forgotten. But the cardstock, it was the cardstock that I wanted, that I was after. So the Aquarian is, the first version of this was published in 1970, but this is a personal choice of mine. Not everyone will resonate with the Aquarian because some of the images might not be that easy to interpret sometimes. The expression on the faces isn't often very obvious, like even in the Three of Cups. For example, you'd expect this to be super joyous or smiling or super happy, and it's just three women getting together. So, I'm not sure if other people read with this deck, or if it speaks to other people like it does for me. But I absolutely adore it. And it's a personal deck of mine that I use for clients. It comes close to the Waite Smith, very, very close second in terms of when I can't find a deck to read with. The Waite Smith is top choice, but then this one increasingly is my other choice. I made this my own kind of personal deck when my grandmother passed away, I decided to give myself a vintage version of the Aquarian. I've always loved it. I love the artwork, so, you know, I did that. And when I received it, I cleansed it, I smudged it, and I consecrated it for readings. And it's been amazing as a reading deck for me. You know, at the end of the day, the relationship you have with your deck, regardless of what deck you choose, is paramount. And how you foster and nurture that relationship and how you feed that relationship is really, really important as a reader. So, here's the Aquarian by, I think it's David Palladini is the artist. So this one comes in a standard cardboard box, which unfortunately I've already seen is starting to get mold on the edges. Living in the tropics is a bit of a challenge for me here. But anyhow, gosh, I mean, I wanted to make this a top 10 and I just could not, I couldn't find just 10 decks. I had to make it top 15. So here we are. It's going to be a bit of a long video, but I'll try and not dwell on some of these too much. So this is the Hansen Roberts, illustrated by Mary Hansen Roberts. Again, a smaller deck size and excellent reading deck again. Very, very Waite Smith, but with very vibrant hand-drawn colors. So my choice is hand-drawn always. Sometimes I'll go for decks that, I mean, you can tell they've had digital collage or digital input, but I love these old hand-drawn decks. I just think that they're very, very special, especially now we're moving into this crazy world of AI and all the rubbish that it brings. These decks are fantastic. So the Hansen Roberts, I guess, is like an alternative to the Waite Smith that is more sort of kind of medieval in the illustrations. Like I feel like this is, I don't know, 14th century or something like that. We've got, you know, queens with crowns and castles, but it kind of carries through the whole deck, and I like that kind of homogeneous theme. So yeah, a nice little addition that I bring out. Again, excellent for pragmatic type readings or, you know, any sort of client reading that you wish to do. Another mass market deck that is absolutely brilliant to work with is the Chaman Casselli. So this deck, I cannot rate this deck enough. It's really got simple, clean lines that make for great readings. In my opinion, just my opinion, the best decks for client readings are the ones that keep in line with the Waite Smith, but not just that, but they don't clutter the image with too many symbols and too many layers of other meanings that, quite frankly, are irrelevant to the person in front of you who is asking the question, will they have a child, will they fall pregnant, or will they get a job, or, you know, how is this business going to work out for them, or, you know, all those sort of questions that are the bread and butter of tarot readers. Having the Kabbalah and the astrology symbols, which, by the way, is not even like a set-in-stone association, and you can easily challenge some of the astrological associations in the tarot cards. You know, that's a separate matter, I understand, but still, that's irrelevant for the day-to-day type questions. So this deck I love because it's simple, it's clean, uncluttered, and I believe there's a workbook that goes along with this. If I'm right, but I might be wrong. In any case, you wouldn't have an issue learning about this deck or working with it because it faithfully follows the Waite Smith while giving a really nice aesthetic, in my opinion. So that's the Chaman Casselli. One indie deck that I do have in these 15, and that is not that easy to come across, but I include it simply because I've used this often for relationship questions, and of course is the Victorian Romantic. As the title of the deck suggests, it's a deck for romance. At least for me, it's always been, you know, like a key deck for relationship questions, and even difficult relationship questions. I don't just mean, you know, the happy, everything is great kind of questions, because the fact is, as a reader, a lot of the times when it comes to relationship questions, the circumstances are not that favorable or happy. Okay, they're not beautiful circumstances. So I don't mean it in that sense. I just think that it works. For me, at least, it has worked very, very well for relationship questions. And so this here is the second edition, I believe. I think they've got 4 editions in total. Now, it's not as rare as it used to be because they've got the additional editions, but it will still cost someone, you know, a couple of $100 roughly, depending on who's selling and, you know, what the interest is out there in the market to obtain it. So you can still absolutely find it, but it's just not as affordable, of course, as a mass market deck, and you know, for various reasons. It's an excellent deck. The quality is brilliant. Cardstock, you know, the whole thing, it's been really well put together. So yes, this is a deck for me that I nearly always, well, always, yeah, I will say always, I always use this for relationship questions. I can't remember when I've used this for other type questions. I just think that it makes itself really useful for that, if I can say that. Right, so we've got 4 decks left. The next 2 are kind of, I always think these are sister decks. I don't know why, but here we go. The Light Seers. Let's talk about this one first. I was late to the party with the Light Seers. I think I missed out the Kickstarter. I didn't even know about it. I think I was pregnant with my daughter, or around that time I was giving birth. Anyway, I just obviously wasn't online. Not, you know, I mean, it's a small price to pay for having my daughter. So yeah, I missed out on it, and I saw people using it, but I kind of felt, I don't know, I sometimes, if things are too popular, I'm not interested, simply because they're too popular, and then it's kind of like I cut off my own nose to spite the face kind of a thing. Because when I finally got this deck, I was just like amazed at how fantastic it is for readings, and now it's one of my top reading decks. So and this is both for myself and for clients, by the way. I saw someone once, who I won't mention. I actually unfollowed her channel after she made the comment. I felt like it was exceptionally derogatory and probably even racist, I would say. Well, definitely racist. You know, she commented that this is the type of deck that she saw a middle-aged white woman in suburbia make, or something along those lines. And I thought, gosh. I mean, geez. People's minds out there are just... Anyway. First of all, yeah, I thought that was terribly rude and a very unfortunate way to describe this deck. Second of all, I think it's an excellent reading deck, and it's been proven itself over time. The images are just so beautiful and so inspiring and so uplifting. This is an exceptionally uplifting deck. So for clients that come, you know, in a very difficult frame of mind, or the circumstances are just really challenging, I reach out for this deck. I think even though it's got these sort of images that are difficult images, I mean, every deck will have a 3 of Swords in it, but most of the other cards in this deck are just so stunning, and the characters are like full of life, full of zest, full of vibrancy. They're in love with life, you know, which is I think that is what we're here for, to not just to enjoy life. I don't mean that in a hedonistic way, but to be a part of it and to live it fully. And this deck, for me, embodies that, absolutely. So this has been an excellent deck. And I bought the second hand for like 20 bucks, I think. Maybe not even that. Someone had already edged it, which I quite liked. The Kickstarter edition, well, that's a different story. If you want the Kickstarter, I saw that sell unopened a couple of months ago for about $600. So that's Australian. But, you know, the mainstream, you know, secondhand even perfectly works amazingly well. And the sister deck to this one that I, for some reason, always thought of them as sister decks, is the Unfolding Path. So now this is the Kickstarter deck, but it's come out mainstream, so it's kind of bent itself a little bit. So yeah, you can pick the mainstream version up for, I don't know what it is, but it's, you know, relatively affordable. I guess I think of them as sister decks because they have the same uplifting, vibrant, magical energy. It's joyous, right? It's happy. But it's not like fake happiness. It's like a deep joy that kind of pervades the whole card. And again, even though we've got difficult cards, I mean, isn't he cheeky? A very sexy Knight of Swords, I would say. Even the tie is undone, and yes, full of life. And the Queen, I mean, the Queen of Wands here is just stunning. I just think these characters are alive. You know, they're in life. They're doing it. They've had their challenges, for sure. But I think they've discovered the secret to living. And I love that about them. I absolutely do. I love the colors, of course, and the artist's interpretation of the cards. I think for reading for people and people's questions, it's an excellent deck. Very relatable, easy to answer a question, and to find the details that you need, you know, to support or give context to the answer. But again, it's not overly cluttered. Most of the cards are very minimalist in style, I would say. Like, you might get some, you know, the flowers details, which I love, but other than that, you know, they're not, like, they keep to the theme of the card really well. So this is the Unfolding Path, and I just think it's an excellent deck. I reach for it often as a reading deck. Second to last is the Golden Tarot by Cat Black. Again, these are in no particular order. I'm just going by, you know, what I've lumped on my desk and try my best not to make a mess of everything. Yeah, the Golden Tarot, I mean, this is brilliant. So this is an Australian artist, Cat Black. This deck is mass market, but it's just amazing. That is a really amazing deck. So she's used images from medieval Renaissance paintings, I believe the time period is. And she's put them all together using digital collage. So she's got different elements from different paintings. Now keep in mind, this deck was published, I think, early 2000s, like 2003 or something like that, when, sorry, 2013, I think. Let's just set the record straight before I talk nonsense. What have we got? No. We've got, oh no, it is 2003, gosh. I mean, if you're around in 2003, you would know that digital collage, the software is nothing like it is today. Today is just incredible what you can do with the software. I mean, it was pretty good still back then, but what I'm trying to say is she's done a brilliant job of putting these images together. Clearly has a very, very good eye for detail and for how different elements should fit together in an image. And again, this is a really, really beautiful deck to read with. It just brings its own kind of grounded, almost serious energy, definitely grounded. I'm getting that kind of earthy vibe from it, with the hues of the browns and the gold, bit of orange and yellow. It sort of has the same color palette throughout as well, but the images, of course, do vary significantly from one to the next, even though they keep to the same color palette. So I think for that reason, I just really admire this level of artistic ability. And over time, when I've read with this deck, it's just made for really good readings because it follows Waite Smith really well. But it's also very, very beautiful. It's probably one of the most beautiful Waite Smith version decks that I have, or at least in my opinion. So this is the Golden Tarot by Cat Black. Excellent reading deck. I don't know what else to say about it. So finally we arrived at my last deck. Again, these are in no particular order, so this actually is a brilliant deck. It's the Druid Craft Tarot. Now, don't be put off by the size of it. The cards, they're still big cards, but this is just the kit set. You know, the good old days of these really wonderful kit sets that came with excellent books. And yes, the book for it is brilliant. I would recommend absolutely getting this book. It's got so much information on the cards. Now, the cards themselves, let me just get them out. So this is, as the name suggests, Druidcraft, we're talking about Celtic shamanism, Druidry, all that sort of wonderful, wonderful stuff from that part of the world. I just think, gosh, the artwork is stunning. Hand-painted, of course. Beautiful deck. I started using this deck because I loved the imagery, and over time I've come to appreciate just how practical it is as a deck, I should say, perhaps. It contains nudity. I hope YouTube doesn't ban me. We won't show that one. It was the Hangman, and if you know this deck, you know what the Hangman looks like. Oh, there's another one. The Lovers. And now let me just hang on. We'll do this. Cernunnos. So this deck, what I've loved about this deck is that and the devil is retitled Cernunnos, who is of course the god of the wild, god of the hunt. And I think this one and the Llewellyn both have Cernunnos as instead of the devil, and I just love that. I think, yeah, you start going down the rabbit hole of who the devil was in Christianity and where they took the idea from, and then look at earlier versions of Cernunnos and what he stands for, which is completely different. Anyway, if you're into paganism or nature-based spirituality, you'll very much appreciate tarot decks that show the devil as Cernunnos. But the thing is, the tricky thing is that the lessons of the devil and what he stands for in the modern world are still, of course, now and probably always will be relevant. So it's a bit tricky reading with these decks because people still have addictions and have bondages and are tied to things that they want to break free from, and that is very much a devil theme. So by replacing that with Cernunnos, it brings a different layer to the reading. But in any case, I love the fact that Cernunnos makes an appearance in these decks. Let's have a look at some minor arcana. So much more expressive, the minor arcana, the people's, the expressions on their face and their interactions makes it very, very easy to read with, right? Some of them, like the Seven of Swords here, will give you a meaning that's not often shown. So the Seven of Swords is about learning, interpreting something, deciphering something, figuring something out, you know, mental with the swords, and trying to really understand a particular issue or how something works, something along those lines, as opposed to the Seven of Swords, which is the classic one of, you know, running away or, you know, being a thief or what have you. But that aside, this is a beautiful, beautiful deck. My only pet issue is that the cards are really large, and so because of that, you know, I've got small hands. It can be a bit difficult to shuffle. Small price to pay though, considering that the artwork is just stunning, gorgeous, and this is another classic in my opinion. So yeah, this deck wraps up my top 15 tarot decks for readers. There were another couple that I thought of including but didn't make it for various reasons, and I know that there's probably many others out there that readers use, of course. But for me, these are the decks that I found work exceptionally well for my clients, and I pretty much, you know, use for 80% of my readings. These are the decks that I use, one of these decks, and occasionally I'll pull some other deck out there, like the Victorian Fairy, which is another pretty good one, or the Connolly, or you know, but really that's rare. I kind of stick to these because they just work. They work really well, and they've kind of been tried and tested and proven themselves. So on that note, I shall wrap it up here and finish my cup of tea. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching, and until my next video, take care.